All right, so today we're diving deep into a hypnotherapy session.
Ooh, fascinating.
Remember that recording with Marie and the hypnotherapist?
Yeah, yeah.
It's incredible. We get to be right there as she works through stress and control issues.
It really is like peeking behind the curtain, seeing hypnotherapy in action,
Yeah.
not just talking about it in theory.
Exactly. And the expert's commentary throughout is gold.
Hmm.
Like they're whispering the secrets of the mind to us.
Right.
So this was actually Marie's second session, right?
Yes, it was. And right away, she jumps into wanting to tackle these pressure and control issues, especially at work.
Yeah, she mentions that even after one session, the pressure feels different.
Interesting.
It's like something shifted, but she can't quite put her finger on it.
Right. And that's where a skilled hypnotherapist can really shine. They can help
Mhm.
connect those dots, guiding her gently to uncover those deeper patterns and really understand that shift.
Like that moment when Marie talks about how control, confidence, and her childhood all seem to be intertwined. It's
Yeah.
like this aha moment, realizing it's all connected.
And that's so common,
Mhm.
That need for control often stems from somewhere like early experiences or emotions,
Mhm.
trying to navigate tough situations early in life. Have you noticed that in yourself?
Oh, all the time. When I feel out of control, my instinct is to grab onto anything I can.
Exactly.
Mm.
And for a while, that can be helpful, right? Like a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
But over time, that grip can turn into the very thing causing stress.
Totally. A vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Holding on tighter just creates more
It's
tension.
like trying to hold sand in your hand. The
Ooh.
tighter you squeeze, the more slips through your fingers.
Such a perfect analogy. So, where does that leave Marie?
Mm.
She's aware of the issue, but what can she do about it?
Well, that's where acceptance comes in.
Okay.
And not just accepting the situation, but accepting the emotions tied to it.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. What does acceptance really look like when we're talking about fear, stress, this need to control?
Think of it like this. It's acknowledging those feelings, really letting yourself feel them without judgment or the urge to push them down,
Okay.
creating space for them instead of constantly battling them.
It's a subtle shift, but I can already see how powerful that could be.
Absolutely, because when you resist something, you give it power.
Yeah.
Those emotions become this thing you're constantly fighting,
Right.
leading to more internal chaos. And you see that in Marie's journey.
And that's when the expert brings in those amazing metaphors of lightness and space. Yeah. It's like they're giving Marie a new language for this process.
Totally. Using imagery throughout the session to help her visualize moving from that constricted, almost suffocating headspace to one that's open and receptive.
I see it.
Remember that part where they asked Marie to picture her stress as clouds just drifting by?
Oh, I love that part.
It's so calming.
Yeah.
Like instead of being caught in a hurricane of emotions, you're just observing them float by.
Exactly.
And that's the key, finding that inner stillness where you can just be present with your emotions without getting swept away.
Powerful.
This.
One thing that really struck me was when Marie describes this physical sensation in her stomach. A talk, as she calls it.
Oh, yeah.
It's so vivid and real.
It really is. This talk becomes a symbol for Marie's struggle to let go,
Interesting.
perfectly illustrating the mind-body connection.
Like her body is literally saying, pay attention to this.
Exactly. And the expert picks up on that right away, asking Marie,
Hmm.
how much space is she willing to give to this acceptance and letting go?
It seems like such a simple question.
It does.
But, it's loaded.
Oh, yeah. It's like being asked to confront the core issue head on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where things get really interesting because Marie's response, well, you'll have to wait for part 2 to hear about that.
Well, let's just say Marie's response to that question about how much space is powerful.
Yeah.
Like a wave of emotion washes over her.
Right.
You can practically hear her subconscious grappling with this whole concept of letting go.
It's like that question unlocked something, and
Uh-huh.
as the session goes on, you
Yeah.
can almost hear those deeper layers of her mind working through this.
It's in those moments, those moments where she's on the verge of a breakthrough,
Yeah.
that the expert points out how her subconscious is actively processing.
Right.
It's fascinating how hypnotherapy can tap into those deeper levels of awareness.
It's like illuminating parts of ourselves we didn't even know were there.
Yes.
And as those parts come to light, Marie starts to realize she has a choice
Mm-hmm.
to keep resisting or to embrace those uncomfortable feelings.
And what's incredible is as she's exploring this idea of acceptance, she stumbles upon this word,
What's that?
comfortable.
Hmm.
She describes how it feels to accept rather than control.
Interesting.
Comfortable. It's like a light bulb moment.
It's like that word just sums up the shift from tension to ease, from fighting to surrendering.
Yes, exactly.
And isn't that when that concept of lightness really takes hold?
Totally. Remember that image of the clouds?
Yeah.
As Marie opens herself up to acceptance,
Yeah.
it's like those clouds of stress and pressure can finally drift away. They're not stuck anymore.
It's like finding that center, that calm space within amidst all the chaos.
Yes.
Hmm.
And from that centered place, imagine how much more effectively you can respond to life's challenges rather than just reacting from a place of stress.
It's like building that internal resilience.
Exactly.
And that reminds me, the expert uses a couple of interesting techniques to gauge how Marie's doing.
Oh, yeah.
One of them was the CPAM test. What exactly is that?
Yes. The CPAM test. It's brilliantly simple. You see, CPAM is the French health insurance system,
Okay.
and it's notorious for being well, let's just say it's known to cause stress.
It's like the universal symbol for bureaucratic headaches.
Exactly. So the expert uses this everyday stressor as a benchmark.
Okay.
If Marie doesn't have a physical reaction when CPAM is mentioned, it suggests she's making progress.
Oh, wow.
It's a real-world test,
Yeah.
to see if those internal shifts are actually leading to change.
And did it work? Did that tuk-tuk sensation come back?
Nope. It's like she built up this inner buffer, preventing those stressful thoughts from spiraling.
Wow.
And it highlights this crucial takeaway for all of us. We can't always control what life throws our way,
Right.
but we can learn to control how we respond.
Right.
It reminds me of what Marie says later in the session. She used to think that feeling stress meant something was wrong,
Yeah.
and it needed fixing immediately.
Which, let's be honest, is how most of us react to uncomfortable feelings.
It's so common.
Yeah.
But the truth is, discomfort is just a part of life. It's not the enemy. It's often a catalyst for growth.
It's like we have to move through the discomfort to get to the good stuff.
Yes.
And that's what's so inspiring about Marie's journey. She's starting to see discomfort not as something to fear, but as an opportunity.
Exactly. And that shift opens up a whole new level of freedom.
Wow.
But speaking of shifting, there's this part where the expert uses this technique called the trans-emotional method.
Okay.
And it seems to be a real turning point for Marie.
The trans-emotional method sounds intense.
It's actually gentler than it sounds.
Okay.
It's about addressing that physical sensation directly.
You mean like the talk?
Exactly. Using it as a gateway to deeper emotional release.
Interesting. So it's like using the body to process those feelings instead of just trying to think our way out of them.
Exactly. And the expert guides Marie to really lean into that talk sensation,
Okay.
to fully experience it without resistance.
And what happens?
It's remarkable. It's like a release valve.
Right.
By acknowledging and accepting that physical sensation, the pressure just seems to dissipate.
Wow.
And in its place, this wave of relief washes over her.
That's amazing.
Mm.
It all ties together: acceptance, letting go, finding that lightness.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Marie even says she feels relieved and lighter.
Wow.
It's a testament to how powerful this session was for her.
Yeah.
Sometimes the simplest approach can be the most profound.
Like just acknowledging a physical sensation without judgment.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder what else is possible if we stop resisting and start accepting.
It really does. And I think that's a key takeaway here.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't just about hypnotherapy. This is about personal growth. It's about showing up, being curious about those uncomfortable feelings, and trusting that inner wisdom
I love that.
that we can find greater peace and well-being.
And speaking of wisdom, I love how the session ends.
What do you mean?
Marie acknowledges that the stress might come back.
Yeah.
It's a part of life.
Of course.
But she now has this different relationship with it.
But she's
She's not afraid of it anymore.
right, not trying to control it.
Just sees it as temporary, like those clouds we talked about.
Exactly, drifting in and out of awareness.
She's made peace with the ebb and flow of life.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
This has been incredible. To think we started with just a recording,
I know, right?
and we uncovered so much about stress control and acceptance.
It's amazing what we can learn from diving in like this.
So, to our listener, as you go about your day, we have a little challenge for you.
Okay, I like it.
Next time you feel that familiar surge of stress or anxiety, pause for a moment.
Okay.
Think about that talk sensation that Marie described.
Mm-hmm.
Could you approach that feeling differently now? With a little more space? A little more acceptance?
Maybe even a little lightness?
Exactly. What would it feel like to welcome those feelings instead of resisting them? You might be surprised by what you discover.